Hey guys, Whitney here. Welcome to the Passive Investing Made Simple show. I'm your host, Whitney Elkins Hutton, Director of Investor Education here at PassiveInvesting.com. And I'm so excited you're here. We do this show live every Tuesday to help you learn the ins and outs of passive investing so you can go into your next deal with confidence. And if you haven't done so already, make sure to check out PassiveInvestingWithWhitney.com. There, I've got some free goodies for you on how to get into your first or next passive deal. You also can get access to my calendar. We can talk about how passive real estate can fit into your portfolio. And you can get access to our awesome opportunities that we have here at PassiveInvesting.com. Now, I want to dive into today's content really quickly here because we've got a big conversation to have here. But before I do that, I want to bring in our guest, Scott Maurer. He is the Vice President of Advanta IRA. Scott, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Whitney, thanks for having me. I appreciate you to invite me back on and sharing what wisdom I can with your listeners.
Excellent, excellent. Well, if you guys haven't done so already, make sure to go back to listen to our previous episodes with Scott, where he goes through just the mechanics of, what a self-directed IRA is and how to get one set up. I'm sure we'll touch on that later this episode. But I want to start off with two things. One, Scott, tell people a little bit about your background and how you got into the space. And then we're going to open it up with our main question, which is, how can you roll your 401k into self-directed IRA?
Great. Yeah, thanks, Whitney. So my background, it's interesting. I mean, how I got into really what self-directed accounts are, which obviously we're going to expound on in the next little bit. By degree, my background, I'm a University of Florida graduate, both undergrad, and then I went back and got my law degree at the University of Florida. So as an attorney out there looking for a job, I hooked up with our owner at the time, who was is an attorney as well, and he had this company that does self-directed IRA administration. So I joined the company back in early 2006. At the time, I knew very little about IRAs, much less self-directed IRAs. I was almost as green as anyone who hasn't heard of this topic before coming in, and just spent my time in the initial, probably first 6 months, a year at the company, shadowing our owner, listening to him talk about what a self-directed IRA is, how you use them, and learning a lot about the rules. And it's been a good 18 plus years now that I've been with the company. And I'm still learning every day. It's ironic, kind of neat how often something unique pops up where I need to call our consultants that we use for real technical questions or dive into an issue that I just haven't encountered in 18 years. But the good news, a lot of what we do is something we're all very familiar with when it comes to investing in real estate and other assets, and we're very comfortable handling it. So that's a little bit on my background. I'm a native Floridian. So I live now. I'm coming to see you from Tampa Bay, Florida. And yeah, and happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, we're happy you're here, Scott. Well, let's kick it off first. I always like starting off with the what. And that is, let's give a quick definition to what a self-directed IRA is and how it's different than a 401k.
Sure, great. So what a self-directed IRA, and I like to key in on the terms self-directed because that's where you're going to see the differences between an IRA maybe that you have with a brokerage firm versus a self-directed IRA you might have with a company like ours at Advanta. So 401ks, and just maybe to back up a little bit, the difference between 401k and say IRA, because that's where a lot of people will not confuse the terms, but kind of just conflate them and, hey, a 401k, it's an IRA, what difference does it make? Well, there is some important differences between the two. IRAs are individual retirement accounts that are, you own them, you can, move the accounts around, you can move those funds around, do what you'd like. You contribute on your own to the plan as you wish. Versus a 401k. And when I use the term 401k today, we're going to kind of encompasses other similar accounts like 403bs or 457s or TSP plans. Basically, all of those accounts, which again I might just refer to as 401ks, are employer-sponsored retirement accounts where you work for a business, you work for the school board, you work for the federal government, you contribute some of your salary each year into the plan, and your employer then does a potentially matching contribution into the plan as well. So those 401k plans are tied both to you, you're the account owner, but they're also tied to your employer. And as long as you are employed with that particular employer, you don't always have a lot of flexibility in what you can do with those funds. Conversely, with an IRA account, if you have money in an IRA, you can move that money however you'd wish and whenever you'd like. But when you have a 401k, you can be restricted as long as you're working there. Now, the key thing, once you are no longer employed, whether you retire, you leave the company and move on to another position elsewhere. Once you're no longer working for that company, you can take the cash, the assets within a 401k, and roll those into a IRA account, whether it's traditional IRA, Roth IRA, where you would have a lot more freedom, a lot more flexibility. And then that's where the self-directed component comes into it. And the self-directed means simply that you're going to have the ability to choose the investments that you wish to make, not choosing only from what your particular brokerage firm or custodian is going to offer you.
Well, and I like that you made that distinction between IRA and self-directed IRA, because this is a question that I run into often whenever I'm speaking to investors. They're like, oh, fantastic. So I can use my self-directed IRA to invest in passive real estate. How do I connect my Vanguard to you? And so let's talk about the difference between like an IRA, say like Vanguard, Schwab, Fidelity, which feels like self-direction, and then a truly SDIRA.
Yeah, great question. And I love you use the word truly because that's the same word we use, kind of what a truly self-directed account is. So yeah, you individually you're listening, you might have an IRA, like I said, at a Vanguard or a Schwab or a Fidelity, where they'll say, hey, well, our accounts are self-directed because you can log into your account on their platform and you choose from mutual funds or stocks or other publicly traded assets that they have on their platform. No one's telling you or advising you what you should do, so you have freedom within that particular space to make the investments. But the IRS allows you to invest in quite a number of different assets other than what's publicly traded that those brokerage firms will hold. So a really what we call a truly self-directed IRA is one in which you can invest in real estate. You can invest in rental properties, partnerships, syndications, car washes, self-storage, gold, silver, a lot of different things you can do with your IRA account if you have a custodian who's willing to hold those assets. And that's exactly what our company does at Advanta. We hold any number of alternative assets, assets that Charles Schwab and Vanguard choose not to hold. It's not that it's illegal. It's not that you're not permitted. It's that those custodians made a business decision to not hold those types of assets on their platform. So a truly self-directed IRA is one in which you are making a decision on what asset class and then particular assets you want to buy, rather than simply picking from what's being offered to you by your brokerage firm.
Now, I know I want to make a pivot here in a second and talk about how to prepare for retirement and how this, the 401k and SDIRA, like how this transition happens. But I'm curious, I want to ask one follow-up question here. Do you have to choose between a IRA at Vanguard, Schwab, or Fidelity and a self-directed IRA? Do you have to choose?
Great question. No, you don't. The IRS permits you to have as many IRAs as you would like. You could have an IRA at Schwab, Vanguard, and Fidelity, and Advanta, and your local bank. The only limits the IRS places on IRA accounts is how much you can contribute out of your pocket each year into the account. So there's a maximum limit. For example, in 2024, you can't put more than $7,000 or $8,000 into the account out of your pocket. That's across all of your accounts. Other than that, though, you can transfer and move money between IRAs as often and whenever you'd like, just so long as you do the right paperwork each time. And that's something that we would certainly help you out with on our end. If you were wanting to say, I have a couple $100,000 in an IRA at Vanguard, but I want to use $50,000 to make an investment into a real estate project, you can transfer just the $50,000 you need for the real estate project to Advanta. We make the investment, we hold it, we do the reporting for that part of your IRA, but you can leave the rest of your account where it's at. Again, you can freely transfer between IRAs as often and whenever you'd like, so long as you don't touch the money. And that's, again, part of the process that we help manage so that you don't have some kind of taxable event from doing that.
And that's another thing, is I don't think most investors truly realize that it's not their money, it's in a for benefit of account, and that's what the IRAs is, right?
Correct. Yeah, you would see it. Sometimes if you look at a brokerage account, you may see it on a statement that it says like Fidelity, NFS, whatever, FBO, and then you just see your name and then your address. But that's the legal titling for the account. For example, when you make an investment into a real estate project through Advanta, we title the asset as Advanta IRA FBO, which is for benefit of your name and your IRA and account number. It shows the IRS that when you've made that investment and cash has come out of your IRA to make that investment, it is not taxable to you. This is not you taking money out as a distribution and being subject to taxes and potential penalties. It's your IRA as its own legal entity making that investment. So that's, again, part of the process that we manage for you at Advanta, is ensuring that the titling on your investments shows your IRA account as the actual investor or subscriber of that particular asset.
Thank you for that. All right, I want to, kind of go back to our center question that we were opening with today. And that is, we have several listeners that, listen to the show and they're preparing for retirement. Say they're, 5 to 10 years away from retiring, or actually at retirement, and they're thinking of leaving their job or have left their job. What options do they have to move their 401k to an IRA?
So I think you have a couple different options, similar to what you might have with an IRA, because once you've left your job or left that employer, presumably if you have a more conventional 401k, your 401k is probably invested into a variety of mutual funds and stocks, or maybe within that particular 401k plan. When you leave that employer, you would have the option to either keep all of the assets intact. Let's say that my 401k through my job is administered by Fidelity. I could open up a Fidelity IRA and they would simply transfer, roll over the assets from the 401k plan into the IRA in my personal name. Again, it's a non-taxable event. So I could just preserve and just invest in the same assets that I had in the 401k plan. Now I'm doing it through an IRA account. Or you could also instead sell the assets in the 401k. So kind of move your 401k plan to a cash position, and then direct Fidelity to send rollover funds to a self-directed IRA with Advanta. And you could move that cash over to us and then direct us to make whatever investment that you found or that you would want to partake in. So with either of those options, again, you still would have the flexibility to move money back and forth. The key thing, and I think this is really true regardless if you're looking at self-directed or not, getting your funds out of the 401k and into an IRA is going to give you a lot of different investment options. I know there are a lot of 401ks where you may be limited to 10 to 20 different mutual funds to pick from. You move that money into an IRA account at Fidelity or Vanguard, you're going to have a whole lot of other investment options. As I said, and then once it's in the IRA, you have the flexibility to carve out a portion of that for any private investments that you find on your own.
Okay, awesome. And then we already tackled the question that you don't necessarily have to choose which IRA. You can actually have a traditional IRA at, say, like your Vanguard, Schwab, Fidelity, as well as have a self-directed IRA. So it's not necessarily either one or the other, that there can still be a mix here, correct?
That is correct. Yes. Yeah. And in fact, most of the clients we have who self-direct, we certainly have a few that have kind of moved their entire portfolio over to us and are investing in alternative assets, but most of our clients maintain multiple IRAs. Let's say they have an investment into a self-storage facility or multifamily where they're getting back a monthly or quarterly dividend from their investment back into their IRA. If that cash is accruing within their self-directed account, a lot of them let that cash accrue a little bit, and then they transfer that money back to their brokerage IRA so they could have that cash earning some interest or invested in a mutual fund while they look for their next deals as well. So it is certainly possible to do that and move money back and forth whenever you would like.
Well, thank you for that. You actually gave me an idea on how to solve one of the issues that I'm having in one of my self-directed IRA accounts. It's repetition is the mother of all skill, right, Scott?
Yes. Yes.
So my question here then is, I mean, we've talked about what a SDIRA is and how it compares to a 401k, what people should have on their radar as they're approaching retirement, how they can actually move that money, what are the options there. What mistakes do you see investors make during this crucial time when they're, moving a 401k, either moving jobs? We can even, tailor this a little bit more to maybe just somebody's moving jobs and moving money, an old 401k around, or they're actually leaving the workforce and they're taking their 401k and putting it into an IRA environment. Like what mistakes do you see investors make?
I would say the couple. One I don't know if it's classified as a mistake necessarily, but someone, especially someone who's changing jobs, right? And you're moving from one position to another. Your focus very likely is on what's this new position going to entail. Especially if you're moving geographic locations. Your farthest thing in your mind is that that old 401k. So you focus on moving to your new job, doing your best at your new job, and then 6 months, a year later, you go, oh, that's right, I still have that plan back at my old employer. So you really haven't done anything with it. So a lot of people simply neglect it, again, not because they simply don't want to, they forget, and the challenges involved in moving to a new position. So I wouldn't say it's a mistake necessarily, but that's something certainly that happens where a lot of people like, oh, I still have that old 401k from a couple years ago. I still haven't done anything with it. Well, no one's contributing to that account. Once you leave that employer, you can't put any more money into it. Your employer certainly isn't doing it because you don't work for them anymore. It's just sitting there. So that's I guess a mistake. People leave it for too long. I think others sometimes when looking to move it to an IRA, you might choose an advisor, maybe someone says, hey, I can help you out with that, and they're putting you in a product or an investment maybe that you don't truly understand. There are definitely a lot of different products out there that certain advisors may sell, that may benefit them a little bit more than it benefits you. I mean, they may have your best interest at heart, but they're still benefiting themselves, and they could be locking your money up. And I've seen that happen over the years where people left a job, got with an advisor, and they put it in some kind of annuity product that had has a 5 or 6 year time period. So if you pull money out prior to then, you're going to have surrender penalties and charges and whatnot. And so you inadvertently lock up your money because you don't truly understand what investment you're getting into. Someone just says, oh, you're going to make 4 or 5% annual, and you say, hey, that sounds great and fine, but you don't realize that when you sign that, it's not something that you can exit. So I think that's probably one of the bigger mistakes when individuals leave is knowing what you're getting into and taking the time to research, talk to people, and find out exactly what options do I have. How much control do I want to have? What kind of advisor am I working with? Am I working for an advisor who, especially if you are working with an advisor, are they charging me kind of like a fee just to manage their portfolio, or are they earning commissions off of every different investment that they sell me? Because you might, the latter category is unfortunately, I'm sure there are many good people who get paid on commissions for investments they sell, but that's where you might find the people who are maybe a little more willing to take advantage of a client every now and then, or kind of fool themselves into thinking they're doing it in the best interest of their client. So really know who get someone you trust, ask them how they're compensated before you make any type of investments. I think that's probably one of the bigger issues we see.
And I can actually, confirm that. I was helping my mom like towards the end of, her life, understand what she could and couldn't do with like her retirement accounts, and just really just like help demystify the language a little bit. And we sat down and we looked at her statement from a known brokerage firm. I'm not going to name them. And it was shocking the fees that she was paying for this advisory, supposedly fiduciary advisory, and for the assets that they had her in. But one of the assets was a REIT, and she had no idea that she could not get out of that REIT like for 20 years almost. And so it was providing zero income to her. And she was like, I want to liquidate that one. I'm like, but you can't.
Yeah.
We can. It's called a Dutch auction, and you're going to get like 14 cents on the dollar for what you invested, and that's pretty painful. I thank you for pointing that out. I mean, it's hopefully you're working with somebody that's on the complete up and up, but it does happen where people get put into investments at the advice of others. And in the long term, it may not actually truly be the best decision for them. Well,
Correct.
what are the actual logistical ways that somebody would go about? They're leaving the workforce, they have their 401k, they understand there are various options they can do with it, but they say, okay, great, I want to move this into a self-directed environment. What are the mechanical steps here?
So it's paperwork. It's nothing more than that. It's not complicated. That's again something that myself and my team we help people with getting that started. So to roll over out of a 401k plan, you first have to have an IRA account for this money to go into. So again, if you have tax deferred money inside your 401k, you would you'd fill out the paperwork just like opening up a bank account to open up a traditional IRA. So you give us, your information, you name your beneficiaries, and then you tell us where the funds are coming from. They're coming, I have $150,000 coming from my old 401k plan. So you'd fill out paperwork with us initially to get the IRA account established. Once you have an IRA account number issued with a 401k rollover, You would then reach out to the administrator of that plan. Again, whether it's Fidelity or Vanguard or someone like that, contact them and say, I'd like to do a direct rollover of this account to an IRA that I've established at another firm. And they'll either take the instructions from you over the phone. I've seen that happen where they'll record the call and you tell them exactly where the money's supposed to go. You'd say, hey, it's going to Advanta IRA. Here's their address and here's my account number. A lot of the times the other custodian will have forms for you to fill out, actually, where you check the right boxes to have this money sent to the other IRA company. And that's something, when you get those forms, even though they're not Advanta forms, I'm more than happy to sit down and look over them and walk you through and tell you which boxes you probably need to check. Because some of it might seem a little Greek to individuals looking at it and saying, I'm not sure which box is going to apply to me. We've done this, I've done this personally for 18 years and know exactly which boxes need to be checked to make sure this happens correct. But first step is opening up the account, filling out the paperwork with us. And once the account is open, the second step is in reaching out to your administrator to direct them to send funds from that account to the new IRA that you've created.
All right. So the $1 million question, somebody is looking at investments currently and they identify something and they go, oh, okay, I have this money that's in my old 401k. I want to invest that. I now need to get the account open. How long does this all take, Scott?
It depends. So if you're moving money, say from another IRA account, so it's an IRA to IRA transfer, that can take as little as a week, maybe a few days more than that, to get an account opened, get the funds transferred, and then get that money ultimately invested. Actually complete the paperwork to make the investment. We can see that turnaround in 7 to 10 days without a problem. The rollovers from a 401k typically take probably 2, maybe 3 weeks. Just because the 401k company has their own paperwork for you to fill out. And once you complete it, they then will cut a check and mail it to us. And that's going to take longer than getting a wire from another IRA custodian on an IRA to IRA transfer. So probably if it's an old 401k, you're looking at 2 to 3 weeks from the time of the account opening till the time we're ready to complete and make the investment. So again, and a large majority of that time is simply waiting on the funds to arrive and for those funds to clear from your other 401k plan.
So what I hear you saying is that, you need to give a little bit of thought ahead of time before, planning to make an investment with the funds actually being in the SDIRA. But it sounds like if somebody has already moved majority of those funds into, say, like a Vanguard, Schwab, or Fidelity IRA account, that transfer to IRA is pretty seamless and you can execute pretty quickly.
Yes, yeah, the IRA to IRA transfer, and I honestly, Whitney, I don't know the reason for this, but with IRA transfers, those companies are more than happy to wire us money. When it comes to 401k rollovers, they almost universally will send a check, and I'm not really sure the logic or rationale behind it, but that's kind of simply the reality. That's what slows down the process, unfortunately. But the good news is, once your account is opened, and we've got that part done and we're waiting for the money to come in, we can begin completing all of the investment paperwork. So if you have identified an investment, we can knock that out before the money even comes in, and getting that paperwork completed, getting that signed off on, securing your spot for an investment if you think it might be closing before you have a chance to do that. So we can certainly work on all of that while we are waiting for the money to come in.
Well, Scott, just in wrapping up here, before we go to our Ask Me Anything part of the show, what is the biggest takeaway that you want investors to have?
I think anytime I talk about self-directed, obviously in what we do at Advanta, it's knowing you have choices, right? You're not pigeonholed into, my money's in the market, and now that there's wars going on across the U.S., or the economy isn't doing so well, or I'm worried about the inflation, ruining. You have other options of instead of putting that money into the stock market or into the mutual fund market. Like, as we've talked about already, you can have your eggs in multiple baskets and really truly diversify and get some of that money over into a self-directed account where you can take an advantage of a real estate investment. Say, hey, this investment makes sense to me. I see the returns. I've looked over the prospectus. Or it's a rental property that I know, hey, I know I can rent that property. I know what the market looks like in my town. It's having those options and having those choices and being able to act on them again, and not feeling like you're just subject to the whims of the market. I think that's a common thread that we've heard over the years from clients. And that's why self-directed IRAs are attractive, right? I can choose and kind of create my own destiny with my retirement accounts by taking control of it, not letting those brokerage firms dictate to me what I have to do.
And I love the word there. I would just want to make sure we pull that out as control. And you're moving the control from Wall Street to your own hands. And so that is something you have to be ready to do for
Yes.
yourself. So that is why we do the shows, to help you understand the ins and outs of passive investing so you do have control. Scott, thank you so much for your time here today. We're going to
Oh,
open
you're
it
very
up.
welcome.
Yeah, we're going to open it up to our Ask Me Anything session here in a second. Before we do so, how can people, if they want to find out more about Advanta IRA, get a hold of you?
Yeah, very simple. You can call me directly. It's 800-425-0653 is our 800 number. And when the recording comes on, just hit extension 1123. That's my direct line. You can visit our website at advantaira.com or email me at smaurer@advantaira.com. You can just find me on the website too and have a link to there. So contact me directly. Any questions you have, even if it's not self-directed, hey, you're looking to roll over this money to another IRA. You said something about how I would do that. I'm happy to answer those questions for you too.
Awesome.